from Lepton Software Solutions. We welcome you all for today's webinar on Rationalize your new and existing retail stores using location intelligence. Our speaker for the day is Mr. Jatin Taneja. Mr. Jatin is a solution expert for our location intelligence software Smart Market and Google Maps. He started his career with software coding and now works very closely with senior business leaders to understand complex business problems and resolve them in a simplistic manner through Google Maps. The session will be for 30 minutes with a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. I would request you all to kindly type in your questions and queries in the Q&A window, and we will take them at the end of the presentation. Now, I would request Mr. Jatin to take the session forward with his presentation on the topic of the day. Mr. Jatin.
Thanks, Mansur. Uh, Thank you everyone for joining in. Uh, Topic for today is rationalization of stores. We'll also talk about some of the data sets of Lepton, and then I'll talk about some of the case studies for how enterprises have been using smart market solution for rationalization of stores. And then I'll give a brief about what Lepton software is all about. So I'll jump straight to the topic for the day. Uh, when we talk of rationalization of stores, the very first question, is why? What is the need for me for a business to rationalize stores? There can be multiple business reasons for rationalization of stores. Some of the business reasons could be, let's say, I have a store, I'm an enterprise, and I have a store in a certain geography or certain location, and I am, drawing X amount of business from this location. It always keeps lurking me, if I'm getting X from my existing store, is there a possibility to draw X plus Y? You know, so this is something that's one of the reasons. Second could be, let's say, I'm totally dissatisfied with the amount of business I'm getting from a certain location from my existing store. Third could be, let's say, I'm more or less I'm satisfied with the amount of business I'm getting from a certain location, but then I have, let's say, 100 SKUs of different products in my existing store, but my out of those 100 SKUs, let's say 10 are not doing good, 10 are just not getting sold. So that compels me to do, or let's say to do the introspection, that yes, why is it so? I need to find the reason. I need to rationalize my stores. Why, if they're existing in a certain location, is it am I getting the right amount of business I should be getting? Am I reaching my full potential? So you know when we say rationalization of stores, there can be different cases. It could be, I have an existing store in a location, and I would want to open new store in the same location because I believe the amount of business I'm getting from existing location is quite good, and I see there is a further potential to draw more business from that locality or that region. So I would go about opening a new store in an existing location. Second could be, I'm not happy with the amount of business I'm getting, with the performance of the store, and I would want to relocate this existing store to a certain new geography or a location. Third could be, you know, I have a store across, different geographies, let's say across India, but I'm looking for new geography again in India for getting more business. So how do I go about doing this? So what is the solution here? So the solution is smart market solution, smart market product. Smart market product or solution, I would say, is a location intelligence GIS platform which helps in bringing business data, lot of locational data like demographic parameters, uh, you know, telecom parameters about number of subscribers in a certain location, amount of uh, uh, amount of data which is getting consumed through handsets of by people across a locality or a geography. And you know so business data, telecom data, demographic data, when they get amalgamated on a platform called smart market platform, it helps in drawing inferences, it helps in drawing business decisions, intelligent business informed decisions, to understand, if I'm trying to understand, if I'm trying to justify the opening of a store, the performance of a store, I can do that in a scientific manner. So that's what smart market is all about. So going into details about rationalization of stores, there can be three parameters for rationalization. One could be identification of competitors' locations. Second could be identification of target areas. Third could be the gap analysis. So we'll talk about each and every parameter in detail going further. So identification of competitors' location. Now try to understand this. If I have a store in a certain location, and or let's say I am looking to come up with new stores in a certain location, it is highly imperative for me to understand how am I placed in comparison to my competitors. Consider this: I am a shopper stop, and I deal in apparels and clothing. Now, for shopper stop, competitors could be Reliance Trends, Pantaloons, Will's Lifestyle Stores. So all these are competitors for a shopper stop. Now, when you talk of understanding the business potentiality of your existing store or rationalizing, your existing store, it is highly important to know, if I'm placed in a certain location where my competitors are heavily present, that could be the reason why I'm not able to, I'm not achieving the amount of business potentiality which I expect my store to reach. Second could be, let's say, if I'm opening a new store, I would want to be located in a location where my competitors are not heavily present. So smart market gives me the liberty to visualize, you know how am I faring, how am I placed in comparison to my competitors, provide competitors of shopper stop in this case. So once I visualize the locations where are my competitors located, I would want to zero down upon locations where my competitors are not heavily present. Second logical step would be to understand, you know across, let's say, if I plan to open new stores across India, I would want to understand those locations where my competitors are not heavily present. And secondly, do you know do those locations possess business potentiality for me? How do I go about achieving this or understanding this? So smart market is a very dynamic platform wherein I have the liberty to provide weightage to different business parameters. Like, so when I say business parameters, it could be demographic parameters. Within demographic, it could be population, amount of number of people in the age group of, let's say, 15 to 35, number of people in the age group of 35 to 50, and so on. Another could be the number of married couples, amount of PUIs. It could be restaurants, it could be important business units. What is the household income affluence factor? So all these parameters can be given weightage. So imagine this, if I am a diapering company, for me, number of married couple would have higher weightage compared to other business parameters. Let's say if I'm a Britannia, a biscuit which is priced at the you know which is priced for, let's say, 100 rupees, you know for and a business and a biscuit packet which is priced at the rate of 20 rupees. So both these biscuits will have different set of audience. And you know for a biscuit which is for 100 rupees, affluence is going to play a major role. My 100 rupees biscuit is going to be purchased by people, or locations which have a higher affluence compared to locations which have lower affluence. So this is the liberty which smart market gives to me. It is such a dynamic tool wherein I can define the potentiality of different business parameters, and it helps me in providing ranking to different geographies. First I thought of the area. First, I zeroed down upon the areas where my competitors are not heavily present. Secondly, I'm downing upon the areas which have maximum business potential for me compared to the business parameters which are important to my business, for my business. So this is about giving ranks to different cities within India, and then devising the business strategy accordingly. Next, when I have zeroed down upon this is the first city which I should be targeting on the basis of business potentiality, and this is the second city which I should be targeting from business potentiality perspective. Next, I would want to understand within that city, which areas should I be targeting. So this depicts, you're divided the whole city into grids of 1 cross 1 square kilometers, and then different data parameters like number of households, amount of population, amount of working population, the affluence factor. So all these are divided, categorized as grids are categorized on the basis of business potentiality. So this helps in understanding, if I have a store in a certain location, now I can assess whether my store lies in a high potential business grid for me, or it lies in a moderate business potential grid for me. Or let's say if I'm looking to come up with new stores in that city, I can zero down upon only the high potential business grids for me. So that's the beauty of the product. It tells you the city wise business potentiality. It also tells you within the city which areas should you be targeting. This is the land use data, and this holds really high relevance. Let's say if I want to come up with a new warehouse, I would want to be located in a region which is, let's say, outside the city, which is non-urban. And and compare this, if I am a shopper stop, and if I want to come up with a new store in a city, I would want to be in a location which is non-industrial, which is densely populated and has high affluence for me. So that's land use data for you, which again can be inculcated in the smart market solution to come up with the scientific scientific decisions and understanding the business potentiality of different geographies. This is a composite footfall index. This this tells you at any given point of time during the day what is the amount of people located in a grid. Again, this is logical division of a locality for 1 cross 1 square kilometers, and it tells that yes, green grids are the grids wherein you have good amount of people existing at around at any given point of time. And if I'm I can my marketing campaigns can be aligned in such a manner that yes, if during the period 12 to 2 during the day, there are certain green grids, I can target my product strategy accordingly, I can market my product accordingly. A very good example is, every day a lot of people from Delhi come to Gurgaon for two different offices for business purposes. So all these areas of Gurgaon, which are adjacent to Delhi, or where offices are located, these become high potential grids for certain businesses if they want to market their product, or if they're targeting a certain set of customers, certain audiences. So that's composite footfall index. So this comes from telecom data. As a matter of fact, Lepton has exclusive partnership with Vodafone Idea for their telecom data, and it helps in understanding, you know, what is the amount of data getting consumed across different localities in a city, or what is the amount of people at any given point of time in a grid. So this tells you which are the high potential areas in terms of handset cost. So handset cost is a surrogate for understanding the affluence of a location. Somebody who is having an iPhone 11 is or locations which have more number of iPhone 11s would be having higher affluence compared to areas which have handsets whose costs are, let's say, you know around 10,000. So it's a very good surrogate and very good indicator if I want to understand which are the locations I should be targeting for my business. As I mentioned earlier, if Britannia has a biscuit which is priced at the rate of 100 rupees, so So areas where handset cost is high, which means affluence is high for that location. So these locations can be targeted by Britannia for 100 rupee biscuit. And areas where handset cost is not that high, or let's say it is handset cost is low, which is the red depicted on the maps interface. So these locations can be targeted for by Britannia for 20 rupee biscuit packet. Next is mobile data usage again. The areas where mobile data is getting consumed, average consumption is more. So those areas again can be, affluence for these areas is relatively higher compared to the areas where mobile data consumption is low. So, and I can target my product accordingly. I can find the right set of audience accordingly. This is gap analysis. So these are the areas. If you look at the graph, it depicts high population density areas. So if I, from business perspective, if I do not have a store over here, I'm potentially missing out on good amount of people living in this defined geofence. And I should think about opening a new store, provided I do my due diligence of understanding the affluence of this location, the amount of population which is existing in this location, and I can realign my business strategy accordingly. So this was about understanding the parameters which are affecting my business, which are affecting, you know, my business decision of, coming up with a new store in a certain location, or understanding, if I have a store in a certain location, what is the amount of business I'm getting. But then smart market also helps you in understanding or predicting the futuristic trends for demographics, because my business is dependent on demographics. My business is dependent on affluence factor, and a lot of business data is also involved here. So if I can predict what will be the amount of population, or what will be the amount of, if I go granular, what will be the affluence for different locations. If I'm, let's say, if I'm a business enterprise which is looking to open a new store in about a year from now, if I can get to know the futuristic trends for population and affluence, I can be assured that yes, whatever decision I'm going to take is going to be a scientific decision, and I can be relaxed about making that decision. So similarly, once demographics and other parameters can be predicted, the by result is, I can also predict the amount of sales I can expect uh, in future from different geographies. So different algorithms are used for this. It's in terms of artificial intelligence and data science. A lot of algorithms can be used. Classification algorithms, feature engineering, time series analysis can be done, and the regression algorithms can be used here. Other than rationalizing the store, what else can I achieve with the help of smart market? I can do store planning, I can do market campaign planning, I can do sales forecasting, I can do risk assessment, I can do, I can understand whether a particular product is going to be fit in this location, or let's say which location should be targeted for a particular set of product. Or I can also realign my supply chain network. If I talk about certain data sets which are used in smart market solution, are demographic parameters, uh, population, household count, working population, number of males, number of females. Granularity of the data is available at village level and at the block level for urban areas. We also have administrative boundaries and demographic data from the census of India. Lifestyle data, or let's say, these are the parameters which actually help in understanding the affluence of a location. Lifestyle data can be, parameters can be the kind of mobile handset data, the kind of mobile handsets which are there with the people in a location. Are they, what is the total number of people within a locality who are actually international roamers? What is the amount of mobile data getting consumed in a locality? Granularity is available at, for this data is available at rural and block level for urban areas. Next is POI data. So POI, within POI, we have 16 major categories across 179, and 179 further subcategories are there. POS could be important shopping malls, important business areas. More than 75 lakh POI count is available with Lepton. Beyond that, yes, we can provide POI data through with the help of Google Maps Places API. Lepton is also a premier partner for Google Maps for Maps business in India and Southeast Asia. And Places API is a rich depository of points of interest data, which can be leveraged in smart market as per the need basis. And as and when required, we also do a survey, ground survey for different enterprises. These are some of the other data sets which are available. Landmark and POI data, junction views, infra now. So this can be taken up offline as and when required on demand basis. So this is the architecture of smart market solution platform. So we have data coming in the form of flat files, web data through web, or in the form of APIs, or let's say a DB read view is available, and this data gets converted with the help of converters, and you know it gets converted to JSON and CSV format. After this, lot of transformations are applied to different data sets before it gets finally stored in the database, and then analysis is done and models created to understand business patterns. So I'll talk about some of the case studies wherein smart market has been used by different enterprises. So this is about a leading private MNC bank. The intention here was to understand their presence in, you expand their presence in Bangalore. They had certain locations in their mind, and smart market solution was used to understand or validate those results. And then, once so extensive study of different locations for using POI, affluence, and business data was done to understand, what is the which is the most potential business location from for this bank, and which is second most business potential location. There were some changes between what bank had their mind, the locations which bank had in its mind, and the report which was shared by us, and finally the results were accepted by the bank, and expansion was done and still going on. This is about a leading beverage manufacturer in Ahmedabad. It was coming up with a new premium product, and wanted to understand which locations should be targeted for this premium product. Again, POI data and demographic parameters in conjunction with affluence data. This report was analyzed and shared with the customer to understand which locations should be targeted for this particular premium beverage brand. So this was done for an FMCG company in Gurgaon, and they wanted to redo or realign their distribution network. To do this, their retailers and distributors were geocoded, and affluence was affluence and various demographic parameters were analyzed to understand the affluence, and how where their retailers should be present, how many retailers should be present in a certain location, and this result was shared with the enterprise. So this was about a leading electronics retail chain, and they wanted to expand their presence in tier 2 cities. They had certain locations, cities, and within the cities they also had certain locations in their mind. They wanted to validate whether these were the right locations and cities, right cities, and the right locations within those cities. And this required a drive time polygon to be drawn for 30 minutes and 60 minutes. So the intention of drawing a drive time polygon was to understand the catchment of these locations. If the store was opened in this location within 30 minutes and within 60 minutes, what is the amount of people who would be getting covered, who would actually be coming to the store if they open one. And again, demographic pattern was studied for these locations, and the results were shared with the enterprise. This is a leading jewelry retail store which has presence across India, and they wanted to understand potentiality of their existing stores and critically analyze if the stores were performing up to the mark, if they were hitting the highest possible potential as per the location they were present in. Again, the stores were geocoded, and demographic parameters, business data, and POI data in conjunction with the affluence factor was analyzed to understand the business potentiality of different stores. Important data parameters which were affecting the business were understood, and results were shared with the retail chain, and this led to realignment of stores across India, so which is still going on. So these are some of the industries with which we work with: telecommunication, banking and finance, FMCG and retail, automotive, logistics, government, insurance, travel, to name a few. If I talk about our clients, these are some of our clients: Google, Geo, PNG, Domino's, Airtel. Mostly all the telecom vendors are our customers. So I would now want to understand, if you have any queries here, I can take them up.
Thank you, Mr. Jatin, for the insightful presentation. We would now begin our Q&A session and respond to your queries. I would request you all to kindly type in your questions in the Q&A chat window for Mr. Jatin to answer them. Also, we would request you to kindly fill the feedback form shared in the link, and so that we can improve our upcoming sessions. And I would request you all to kindly put in your questions or queries regarding the current session for for Mr. Jatin to answer them.
So there is a question from Khalid. I'm assuming that the demographic data is from the census. Yes, demographic data is sourced from census, but then our team of data scientists do extrapolation of demographic parameters, because the demographic data is something which is released after every 10 years. So last results were released for 2011 were released in 2013, something like 2013, and it is 2020. If we don't do the so to have the accurate data, to have the accurate projections for, it is imperative to do the extrapolation of demographic parameters. So next is, how does the projection to the latest year 2020 happen? So as I mentioned, we have our own algorithms. We have team of data scientists who do the extrapolation for these data parameters, and it gets consumed in the solution. Yeah. Next is, what algorithms do we use for gap analysis? So gap analysis is quite simple. We need to understand the business potentiality of different locations. A geofence can be drawn to understand, you know, a geofence, or let's say a catchment, can be drawn to understand what is the number of people living in a certain location, and then what is their affluence, and do I have any store in the within that geofence, or let's say in the nearby vicinity of that geofence which I've drawn using the solution. So that's how gap analysis is done. Next is, what is the price of the product? See, pricing depends on your exact business requirements. Once I get to know the exact business requirements and the amount of data which is going to be consumed in the solution, pricing, it can be done accordingly. Uh, if you have any more questions, I would love to answer.
Okay, I think there are no more questions that are coming our way. So we can go ahead and close the Q&A session and the webinar for today. The next webinar on the same topic for smart market will be held on 2nd of April, as you can see on your screen. and the topic for that will be how location intelligence can transform e-commerce business. This will be for all the e-commerce businesses and also for retail stores and for banks, whoever are into e-commerce. Uh, Also, if you have any further queries or feedback, you can send it to us at the email ID mentioned, marketing@leptonsoftware.com. And I would again request you all to kindly fill up the form of feedback form that we have mentioned there. I think so. We have got some more questions just. The question is on dimensional data. The main issue is that it is residential. But if someone wants to open a store in a not place, again, the your existing ecosystem of stores can be analyzed to understand which are the parameters affecting the business. Connaught Place definitely is a business hub, and it is not just the demographic parameters which are the alone reason for understanding the business or which is affecting the business. So there can be different parameters, different business parameters. So when we go about devising the algorithm, we take into consideration, we take your business acumen into consideration, and then the final algorithm is devised, which helps in understanding. Again, results can always be validated. Once we have the algorithm ready with us, the results can be validated, and it helps in taking informed business decisions. So next is how do we decide the catchment of the retail store? So catchment can be understood. Let's say I'll take my store's lateral as a center and draw a geofence of let's say 2 kilometers, and all the population which is getting covered within that geofence. I can understand the affluence of that population. That's one. Another could be, if your product is for a certain set of audience, I would take only that audience into consideration. That geofence. So there can be multiple ways depending on the business requirement that we can assess the business potentiality of a location or catchment of a region. And another thing that comes to mind is for Domino's, it is drive time of let's say 12 minutes or let's say 15 minutes because they have to deliver in 30 minutes. There is a concept of delivering the pizza in within 30 minutes. So depending on what is the drive time, what is the amount of what are the
areas I can cover within 12 minutes drive time, or let's say 15 minutes drive time. So that will be my catchment, will be the catchment for Domino's. So next is consumption pattern data available in the product. So this is business data or consumption data over internet, or or we can source it from different sources. So this can be discussed, I would say. Next is like how much of food, clothing, household expense, etc. Yeah, all these are part of demographic parameters and can be discussed, can be inculcated in the solution. Next question is NSSO data of consumption. Uh, this could be one of the sources for consumption data. Yeah, it can be inculcated. So I think these are the questions for now.
Yeah, I think so. We should now move forward and close the session for the day since there are no more questions that are coming in. If you have any other questions or feedback, you can please write to us at marketing@leptonsoftware.com. We would be happy to help and connect you with our technical team. So I would like to thank Mr. Jatin for answering all the questions and providing answers to all the queries of our guests. And I would like to thank the audience for today. We will be sharing the recording of the session with all of you over the email for your future reference. Look forward for your attendance on our next Smart Market webinar on 2nd of April. Thank you and have a great day ahead. Goodbye.